He managed to take the swing out of a swing district in the last election.
I have been overwhelmed from the beginning about the amount of support I've had from everybody.
A former federal prosecutor navigating a whole new world of politics, a new president, a new divided America.
Oh, don't worry, we're going to have the wall. Don't worry about it.
Lingering concerns about jobs and looming decisions about a major highway project.
Tonight, Congressman John Katko face-to-face with voters, making good on a promise he made months ago.
It's hard to imagine anyone saying that I'm not available and open to the public.
We want an answer, Congressman Katko. Why are you avoiding us? We want an answer.
His critics are here, so are his supporters.
They all have questions, and we're about to hear Congressman John Katko's answers in the Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. Good evening. Welcome to our special Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall conversation with Congressman John Katko.
We are broadcasting live tonight from the campus of Onondaga Community College inside Store Hall, where a number of constituents from the 24th Congressional District have gathered.
They are all here, and they all have questions for Congressman Katko, who has not held a town hall since the last election. That all changes tonight, and it's happening live right here.
It's worth noting that I'm Matt Mulcahy with Megan Coleman and Michael Benny from NBC3 and CBS 5. The audience tonight was selected as a lottery out of some 600 people who were interested in being here tonight. The size of the audience limited by the congressman's wishes and also the size of the room.
Now, over the last hour, we randomly selected the order the audience will ask questions. If at any point someone needs to be removed, that will be done by OCC security. Now that we have the rules out of the way and set the tone for the evening, let's get things started. A warm welcome tonight for Congressman John Katko.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. How are you, Matt? Good to see you. Hi, Megan. How are you? What's going on, Matt? All right, good to see you.
Congressman Katko, we appreciate you being here. I know the whole audience has a lot to ask you, so we want to get things rolling right off the bat. A couple of opening remarks from you.
Sure, I just want to thank Channel 3 and 5, CNY Central, for having me here tonight and engaging in this most democratic version of the American process. So I thank you all for taking time out of your schedule tonight and being here. I know it's a lot to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And whether you think so or not, I absolutely learn from you. I learn from protesters. I learn from my supporters. I learn from people who agree with me. And I learn from people who disagree with me. So no hard feelings. Speak your mind. Let's have a discussion tonight, and let's get at it. So with that, Matt, I'm ready to go.
All right, Congressman, and we are ready to go as well. We have our first question from Nancy, and she has a question. She's going to direct it right at you here tonight. Nancy, take it away.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Congressman. First off, I would like to say thank you for having this town hall, and I hope you have more and larger ones in the near future. There are 3 areas of the Trump proposed budget that I would like reinstated. They include Meals on Wheels, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay.
What 3 areas would you be interested in changing and why?
All of them. Because I could, quite frankly, my mother did Meals on Wheels for 20 years, and I went with her at times. I went with her I went by myself since I've been in Congress. I've done it many times. I have friends that do an awful lot of volunteer work for Meals on Wheels, including one of my neighbors, and a retired FBI agent, and have an immense amount of respect for them. The public-private partnership, which Meals on Wheels represents, is the best form of government I can see. Government provides the funding and gets out of the way and lets these people do the great work. And when you bring a meal to someone that's at home, you allow them to stay at home longer, and you allow them to have a better quality of life for a longer period of time. My mother-in-law enjoyed Meals on Wheels for quite a while when she lived in a rural area, and it was great. And so I strongly support that. As far as endowment for the arts, I'm a very strong supporter of that as well. I believe that we need that. I believe that the cultural integration and the things that it represents are wonderful, and I think it's something we should do. And the last one, I'm sorry, was environmental. Oh yes, EPA. Yes, the EPA. There's a lot of concerns out there. The EPA was going to be abolished. They were going to slash their budget to terrible, make it a debilitating budget. Well, none of that happened. And everything you just asked about came from the president's budget, right? And presidents in modern times have basically taken the budget and sent it up to Capitol Hill as a wish list of their priorities. But what people have got to remember is that the budget is a function of Congress, not the president. And I'm happy to tell you that we just did the budget. It just passed. The president just signed it. And none of the cuts he was talking about to any of those agencies happened. So it's proof positive that Congress can control the process, and we're going to make sure that we keep those things funded properly going forward. Now, the last thing I'll say is we have to be mindful of the fact that we can't spend with this government. We have to, with a scalpel, surgically find places we can save money, and we got to endeavor to do that with any program, including those.
Congressman Scott from Baldwinsville joins us now. He has a question. You mentioned the EPA and the environment. Scott wants to ask a little more about that.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm concerned that the Republican Congress and the President are so into rolling back the environmental protections that have been built up over the last 30, 50 years. And we're going to end up again with lakes like Onondaga Lake that we spent billions of dollars trying to resurrect, and is just barely coming back to life.
Right.
So I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Sure, Scott, let me ask if I may quickly. Are you from Syracuse? Did you grow up here?
I'm from Beeville, yes.
Okay.
I have. And
So you, like me,
drive past the lake, and it used to stink to high heaven.
Yep.
I'm thrilled that it's coming back the way it is, but at a great cost.
one of the things that profoundly affected me growing up, Scott, you can sit down and relax, man, don't worry, it's my time to work. One of the things that profoundly affected me growing up was when my dad used to take me to hockey games or take me somewhere in the car on a Saturday morning early. You go down 690 past the fairgrounds and way into the city. You remember the ramp that went over the highway? And at the end of the ramp, they had a big tube, and this brown crap came out of there. And I'm like, what is that stuff? And I never understood, even at a young age, why our forefathers let that place get so polluted. And that profoundly affected me. And so moving forward, I am going to work on making sure that we don't roll back all the environmental progress we've made. And I don't think we will. But let me give you an example. The brownfields legislation, brownfields is a program which provides federal funding to clean up hazardous waste sites, right? And I just introduced a bill to continue funding of it and enhance funding for brownfields. Because all over my district, our district, your district, there's all kinds of brownfield sites that have been reclaimed because of the brownfield program. So I'm a big believer in that. I've also signed on to what not a ton of Republicans have, and it's called the Climate Resolution. Last term it was the Gibson Climate Resolution. This term Congresswoman Stefanik signed on to it as well. It's about 15 of us Republicans saying climate change is real and man's contributed to it. And we must be mindful of that moving forward in the programs that we enter into. So I absolutely believe in the climate stuff. I absolutely believe in shifting tax credits from fossil fuels to renewables, and like wind energy and solar, right? Anything else? Thank you. I wasn't sure I was going to get many claps tonight, so this is encouraging. But so one of the things I did with it, you notice with the nuclear power plants up in Oswego, at first blush you may think, oh no, nuclear. But nuclear is 100% clean emissions, no carbon at all emitted in the atmosphere. And until such time as the renewables can stand on their own 2 feet to sustain us as an economy, we need clean sources of energy. I would respectfully submit that's one of them, is to provide a bridge. But we've got to get to the point where we can have renewables. One great thing we can leave our kids and our children's children is renewables that function to provide all the power we need. Until such time, let's keep trying to find ways to keep the environment as clean as possible. And thank you for your question.
Congressman, I am with Tess from Wayne County, and she has a question for you tonight about President Trump's travel ban.
I didn't think we were going to have any questions on Trump tonight.
I strongly oppose a Muslim ban. Do you? Yes or no, and why?
Oh yeah, listen, we cannot restrict people coming into this country based on their race, based on their color, based on their sex, or religious orientation, or any of those things. We can't do that. But just take a step back, okay? Was that executive order he doled out, was that clumsily handled? Absolutely. Absolutely. Call it a rookie mistake or whatever, but look at the intent behind it. And I can talk about this with some degree of intelligence because I work on Homeland Security every day in Congress. I'm on the committee, and I get briefed in the basement of the Capitol and literally in a lead-lined room about the bad things people want to do to us, right? And whether we want to believe it or not, people want to do us serious harm, and it's frightening some of the plots have been uncovered that you can't talk about in a non-classified setting. But the bottom line is this, okay? ISIS and Al-Qaeda want to infiltrate the West through the refugee process. They've been successful in doing it in Paris when tons of people were killed in those horrific incidents, and in Brussels at the airport that was blown up. It's terrible stuff, okay? In 2012 or so, and the gentleman came in from Iraq as a refugee. And after he was here, it was found that his fingerprints were on roadside bombs that killed our soldiers in I think it was Afghanistan, Iraq, one of the two. So then they started investigating him. And after they investigated him, they found out him and another refugee were engaged in a plot to do some serious damage here in the United States from a terrorism standpoint. But also, they were aiding ISIS abroad. They both pled guilty. They're in prison now. So it's real. The threat's serious. We have to take it right. I applaud the president for trying to do something about it, and we got to find a proper balance. And the last thing I'll say is, I've spoken with all the refugee centers, and I've become friends with guys like Yusuf over at the Northside Learning Center and the Interfaith Works people and Catholic Charities, Mike Millar and all them, and they all say the same thing, and the same thing I maintain. I have no problem with refugees so long as they're properly vetted. If they're properly vetted, I have no problem with it, but we can't cut corners. And what we found out was the last administration was cutting corners because they couldn't verify certain information, and that's a dangerous thing. So as long as we can streamline the process, we are going to be okay. And these people I talk with and these agencies agree with me, and we work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next question comes from Kevin in Baldwinsville. He's concerned. We've certainly seen a lot of floodwaters this spring, but you have your own question about that, Kevin.
Yes. First question is, we have an issue in Lysander with the FEMA floodplain map having an error in it.
You're not alone, my friend.
Okay.
You're not alone.
And I was just concerned with the people, they're spending their own money to try to correct that, and FEMA has been hard to get a hold of. I know we've contacted you. How is there that much bureaucracy that we can't get through to the right people to get that taken care of without an expense to the homeowners?
Here's the problem with the FEMA flood mapping, right? For those of you who may not know, about 10 years ago, FEMA started a program where they redid the flood mapping nationwide. And then if you're within a floodplain, you must have flood insurance. It's not a choice. Now, if your chance of having a flood is once in every 100 years, as opposed to a $10 million house sitting on a shore somewhere, right? That's most certainly going to get flooded at some point because where it was built. It really doesn't matter, and it's not fair. It's very expensive flood insurance, as you know. It makes some people it's hard for some people to get rid of their homes and sell their homes. And it's hard to get a mortgage sometimes because you got to pay a lot of money for this insurance every year. And we just went down to talk about this in the city of Syracuse last summer. It's a nightmare. It's 10 years in the making. And it's 10 years of FEMA through bureaucracy, picking out floodplains and picking out where they did it on a scientific basis. And they tried to do it the right way. But the bottom line is I think it's a deeply flawed program. When you're in the city of Syracuse and perhaps 1/10 of the value of your home is being paid for insurance every year, whereas the guy that has a $10 million house on the ocean is not paying 1/10 of the value of that house for insurance, something's wrong. And so we're trying to look at that and see how we can fix that. Once they make the designation, there's an appeals process, and I encourage anyone that has this, call our office and we will help you with the appeals process. But I'm not going to give you like a optimistic view that the appeals process will go smoothly. It's tough. It's tough. But the bottom line is we're trying to make some changes in the FEMA process. I think it's patently unfair that people in the city of Syracuse who virtually never see flooding and are trying to hang on to their homes are getting screwed with about 10% value a year in insurance for flood insurance, which they never had before. It's forcing them out of their homes. It's just not right.
Congressman, I'm with John from Camillus. He has a question for you
John.
tonight.
How are you?
About veterans.
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for being here, Congressman. I also like to thank you for your support of the military veterans. My question has to do with our military veterans. Specifically, what do you see as the most pressing issues facing our military veterans, and how will you address those issues?
Well, thank you, John. There are a slew of issues facing our military veterans. And here's a cold, hard fact for you. By the time that this meeting is over, another veteran will have taken his life in this country. That's a cold, hard fact. Veterans are committing suicide at a rate of almost 1 an hour. So think about that, 1 an hour. That's a national tragedy. And so we passed some legislation to try and fix that as one example of the problems facing veterans. And this is infuriating. And it was a Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act. I'm very proud of it, very happy with it. It went to President Obama's desk and he happily signed it, as well he should. They set up hotlines across this country for people to call in, veterans that were suicidal. They were put on hold when they were asked to leave messages, and we get back to you. And many of those people ended up committing suicide. That is a disgrace in this country, okay? That's one example of some of the problems that beset the treatment of veterans in this country. I think we have a solemn responsibility from the moment they put on the uniform until the moment they take their last breath on earth to look after them. And here's, thank you. It's a fact that an awful lot of veterans are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they have a substantial PTSD. So we've done a lot to beef up funding for mental health research and mental health treatment for veterans. We've done some things to make the Veterans Administration far more accountable than it used to be. If you're in the Veterans Administration now, you're not just going to get a pass if you have misconduct, you're going to be gone. We're demanding performance, we're demanding the fixes. Another one is a good example is veterans that live more than 40 miles from a veterans facility now have the option of just going getting health treatment anywhere, okay? And that's a good thing. It's got some problems with the act, but it's better than it was, and they're getting more things. There is some problems with it, you're right. But the bottom line is there has been a slew of legislation to try and make things better, but you know what? We failed our veterans in many ways. When people lose limbs and people, sacrifice their lives so we can come and you can protest, and some people get mad at me, you're right as Americans, and I applaud that. And 1.2 million Americans in this country have died since the inception of our country, so you have that right. And we have failed them. So we have to do everything we can to make things better. We've been plussing up funding for the military, and a lot of it's going towards veterans funding, and we've got to do that as well. And we're going to continue to do those things. And I have a veterans committee in my district, and I meet with veterans, and we work together to try and identify the issues that are problems. There's wonderful organizations like ClearPath for veterans, which helps deal with veterans' issues of PTSD, and they really developed this whole guide dog and comfort dogs that's taking fire nationwide. So there's a lot of good things happening. We need to do more.
Congressman, I want to ask this side, the whole room. Anybody got 111, the number 111? Right here. Right here. Where are you? Okay. Your next question. I didn't have time to grab your name, so why don't you tell the Congressman who you are, where you're from?
My name's Philip Buff. I'm from Fabius. You'll have to excuse me. I have to read from prepared notes.
That's quite all right.
I'm not challenging your religious faith. However, I do have a question as it regards your legislative agenda. The question is, you have stated that your Catholic faith dictates your legislative agenda regarding abortion, with the exception of rape and incest.
And the life of the mother.
Excuse me?
And the life of the mother.
So then why don't your religious beliefs then compel you to fight for universal health care, which even the Pope deems as a right, not a privilege?
I get asked sort of that question, not in a religious vein, but I get the question about a single-payer health plan. You can sit down. Thank you for the question. I don't believe in this country that a single-payer health plan will work, period. Okay? What separates our economy from most of the economies of the rest of the world, and what made us the biggest, best economy the world has ever seen, is that it's a free market economy, right? So in my opinion, and just my position, and you can disagree with me or want, and I completely respect that, and I respect your position too, for sure. But my opinion is that we've experimented with this with the Affordable Care Act, and we have places like Iowa where 54 out of 59, let me finish please, 54 to 59 counties have no insurance carrier right now. Okay, so it's not working. So, let me tell you what I would like to do, okay? and why I felt that this repeal fell far short of anything that what might possibly work. Because I made a commitment to you and everyone in this room when I was elected in 2014 that I would never vote for a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, as much as I think it wasn't a good idea, unless or until a full replacement was ready to go. Okay? And that's in contrast with many of my brethren, my brothers and sisters in the Republican Party. But the bottom line is this. Here's what I think we needed to do. That repealed all the funding mechanisms of the Affordable Care Act. Okay? It replaced it with tax credits that probably are not anywhere near sufficient for people buying insurance. It's cuts $7 billion in Medicaid payments to New York State alone, which is a gut shot to middle-class taxpayers. What I think we could do, in addition to all that, and what we need to do, is do the things that are going to drive costs down. Who here is sick of the prescription drug prices in this country? Yeah. Right? Okay? Let me finish. Okay? That will drive costs down. Who would like to see interstate competition for health care? Who would like to see tort reform? Who would like to see, a lot of us would, and I believe these things are drivers, okay? But unless you have a full replacement and you get it back to a market base and create competition that keeps the costs down, you're never going to have it.
Care of our brethren, our own countrymen, not pre-birth, but after birth, with universal health care. It's an obligation that we have. It's not market-based. We have a moral obligation.
I happen to believe that the market base will work. Reasonable people can disagree, and I respect your opinion, and I respect your rationale. I'm not asking you to respect mine. I'm just giving you what my position is.
I've got to ask if there is a number 89. Do we have a number 89? We were looking for one. We do have one. You've said no. Okay, well, we'll pass your time off gladly to the next person. Thank you, ma'am.
Congressman, we're going to bring you another question from social media tonight. This is from Marcia, who posted to Facebook saying, how can we stop this negativity in our government? Certainly you can see that there's been a lot of frustration and anger here tonight. What's your response to Marcia?
Yeah, listen, I don't believe there's anger. People have passion, and I totally respect that, and I totally embrace it. I got it. Not everyone's going to agree with what I have to say, and that's your right as Americans. Express yourselves. I'm cool with that. That's fine. So that doesn't bother me. I don't think that's anger. That you're doing what makes our country great. But I'm sorry, Megan. The nature of the question again. I'm sorry, I got off track. I'm sorry.
She asked, how can we stop this negativity in our government?
Well, I can tell you, and I'll put my money where my mouth is with this. Okay, there's a group of about 20 Republicans and a group of about 20 Democrats that meet on a regular basis. And we always make sure we have an even number of Republicans, even number of Democrats that are committed to trying to work in a bipartisan manner. I'm one of those people, all right? And we meet on a weekly basis. And there are some things we know we're not going to agree on, like, for example, a single-payer health care system as opposed to market-based. But instead of getting frustrated and mad at each other, we try and figure out where we can find common ground. And let me give you an example, okay? There's a lot of talk about tax reform right now, right? And a lot of talk about tax reform could jumpstart the economy, could bring a lot of money back from overseas. Probably trillions, there's trillions of dollars that are overseas that used to be here, right? And we could bring that money back and maybe use that money for infrastructure. So we as a group have made a statement to say, we think tax reform should be coupled with infrastructure, an infrastructure bill, so we can do both tax reform and infrastructure. We, the bipartisan members. Now, whether you guys want to believe me or not, I am still considered one of the most bipartisan independent members in Congress. I have more bills passed last term than any freshman in the history of our country, okay? And every single bill, the very first co-sponsor, the lead co-sponsor was a Democrat, okay? That's how you lead. That's how you get through this partisan gridlock. And that's how you stop this banging from both sides. Because both sides have got to accept the fact that we're not always going to agree on everything. And both sides are not going to have to accept the fact you have to compromise. The art of compromise has been lost. For God's sakes, Ronald Reagan a hardcore conservative, and Tip O'Neill, a hardcore liberal, got together and did some pretty landmark things. They fixed Social Security for a generation, and they did tax reform. That's the last time we did tax reform. It can happen, it will happen, and I'm going to be at the forefront of trying to make that happen.
Congressman, we head back to the audience now. Marilyn from Marietta has a question for you about prescription drugs.
Sure.
Hi, I'm concerned about healthcare, obviously, as everyone else is, and you said people are angry here, and I think part of the problem is also that we are frightened, and people are frightened that we won't have enough money to pay for it, we won't have the coverage that we need, we'll have caps, and so forth. And I know in your letter to the Post-Standard yesterday, you talked about the market reforms, and you touched on some of them. And I think that going along with the healthcare, the cost of prescription drugs, as you mentioned, is a huge problem, another frightening thing for seniors. And what are some of the things that can be done? Can there be some agreement to allow Medicare and Medicaid to negotiate drug prices the way the Veterans Administration does? Can the profits that these companies are making be restricted in some way? What can be done with the cost of drugs?
Okay, thank you very much. And it's a great question. That's one of the things. And you picked up on one of the things I talked about when I say one of the things we need to do to make health care more affordable and get insurance prices down. Prescription drugs is a key component of that. Absolutely, we should try and figure out a way to negotiate better drug prices. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this, but first of all, my mom and dad, my father has Alzheimer's, my mother has some health issues as well. It's amazing how much money they have to spend on prescription drugs. It's crazy. It's crazy. And we have seniors who have to get on buses to go to Canada to buy their medicine. This is America. It's crazy, right? So I totally agree that we should absolutely negotiate prescription drug prices. Absolutely. We've got to do that. And we've got to create more competition as best we can. Absolutely. And I think that I'm open to other suggestions as well. Because in my mind, that's one of the big cost drivers of healthcare nowadays is exorbitant prices. It is.
Congressman, we don't have time for more questions. And I know that means that folks here are going to feel like they came up short. How many people here would like to see another town hall meeting soon?
Me too.
We certainly respect, you've been a great audience tonight. You've had well-considered questions. We would have loved to have gotten to all of them tonight. Before we fully wrap up, though, we're going to give the Congressman about a minute to give us a closing thought before we're done for the night. So, Congressman, a final minute or so.
Thank you. I want to thank CNY Central. You know, think about it. That's right. This is an hour of airtime with no commercials. That's a lot of money for them, and I appreciate what they did to try and let us take part in this modern experiment in democracy. Listen, I learned from you all, okay? And I appreciate the fact that you feel differently than me and you're passionate about things. That's great, okay? And we're going to continue to have these conversations. I'm happy to have more of these. I thought it was very well done, and I appreciate everything everyone did to come here tonight to offer their opinions, okay? This is America, okay? This is democracy in action. And our forefathers set up a great country where you were allowed to voice your opinion. You're allowed to say when you're pissed off at somebody. That's great. And I love to hear it because it makes me a stronger and a better leader. And listen, sometimes I don't always like the signs outside my office with me dressed in a dunce hat and all that, but that's okay. That's your right, and you're educating me as to other points of view, and that's fine. But the bottom line is this is a great country, and we got to continue this dialogue going forward. I've had tons of telephone town halls. I've had Facebook Live. I've had Google Hangouts. I've had town halls that are subject-based, like on heroin, which is killing our kids, and I'd like to talk more about that next time, and many other things. And I'm going to continue to make myself available.
Thank you. One thing we can't do is go into prime time.
Are you ready to announce another town hall tonight?
I don't have a date, but we definitely will do some more.
How about tomorrow? Ready for tomorrow? Thank you, Congressman, very much.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you to everybody watching tonight. Thank you, Congressman, for our town hall.
And we know the conversation is going to continue online on our Facebook page and at CNYCentral.com.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.